Eastern group now turning cold, Angels 12. Bogey Dope Western group.
285 and MOD3, boss.
Okay, I show well south of the line, 14 miles.
Red 9 Slasher 02 copies, clear to engage. Engine close.
Clear to kill, clear to kill. He's abandoned down.
We're here. Not just light automatic.
Mindy, let's come hard left. Roger, just his deep hammer. That's him right there.
Hey folks, Rob here. In this latest episode of our DIY series, I had the opportunity to sit down with Des and Biggus from the Open Phantom project a few weeks ago. These guys, similar to the Open Hornet project, are putting together an open project where you can essentially get plans and best practices for developing components if you're interested in developing components for a particular aircraft. In this case, it happens to be for the Phantom, which if you're a bit smitten with this Phantom, like I happen to be, this could be right up your alley. So I really appreciated them taking the time and talking with me about how they got involved in this and their background as well. So it's kind of funny because Des is in Poland and Biggus is in Australia, and I'm sitting here in the middle of Texas. So here we are, all three of us, really all interested in the Phantom, talking about it, but spread out across the world. And again, now we actually have some tools and technologies such as 3D printing and designs that we can pull together and actually make these components. So if you're interested in the Phantom, if you're interested in 3D printing and making your own components, this could be a good episode for you. And I really can't say enough about how impressed and motivated that these guys have made me to start building my own components. Again, I have no background in it. And even though the Des came out and said, oh, I've got no background in it, even though I built an electric car, you kind of have to be kind of a special guy to be able to do that. That being said, the work that they've been doing for the Open Phantom project has been amazing. And I have to say that I really think that if you're curious on the quality that you can actually put together for some of these components, it's amazing. And I never would have thought that you could put some things like this together. So I would have just thought, hey, I have to buy that. So while you may still want to go ahead and buy things like this, it's amazing. And I think these guys are certainly leading the way. So I really appreciate it. So again, thanks again to Des and to Biggus for taking the time to meet with me. And thanks to .bmp, who could not make it, but as I understand it, he's been instrumental in getting this going. So thanks a lot, and I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Yes. So welcome, guys. Des, I'll start with you. Can you give us a little bit of an intro about yourself and how you came into the project and your background and how it's a good fit?
Hey, Rob. Thanks for having us. I have literally no background in electronics or nothing like that whatsoever. I would start off with I had no background, but then I built an electric car in my garage before it was cool. I had help. I had help, and I worked off of
help.
Yeah. No, it's it's in the early days of the EV blog. Some folks might know what that is. That was like almost 2 decades ago. But that's what got me into Arduino. But then I stopped for like 2 decades, and I have no, extensive or formal training in electronics or mechanical engineering or any sort of engineering at all. I'm not a lawyer, but close. So that's what I do by trade.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
let me just pause you for a second and just say it does sound kind of. I have no experience, but I did build an electric car, and then I appreciated you going, well, I had a little bit of help. That's pretty fantastic.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's I didn't want to be dishonest about my background, right? Because it gave me a head start, but not as much as you would imagine, because I was building off of off-the-shelf parts and stuff that was available on the internet. So again, I had a bill of materials. I had help from other people working on the same project. So it's and here I had to work for the most part on my own. But then again, most of the stuff that we do comes off the shelf. DCS BIOS is ready, right? It's a finished or mostly finished product. So yeah. Okay,
So-
I've been rambling for a while.
No, it's
Biggus.
good. It's good rambling, and I interrupted. But yeah, we'll have Biggus jump in.
Okay. Oh, how do I compete with building an electric car? Wow. Just casually. No, I'm a primary school teacher by trade. I teach science and performing arts to students at a small primary school, kids from about the age of 5 to 13. I've got no real background in electronics or anything very creative, and something about building parts for this 50s, 60s fighter jet tickled my brain so much that I just ended up throwing myself at it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been doing flight sim stuff since probably about 1986 when I was about 7 or 8. And it's just always been something there.
Yeah, no, I think a lot. I know as far as flight sims, it's been the same. I think I was involved early with Timex Sinclair 1000 in 1980, where it was just blocks,
Oh, wow.
and you had to have quite the vision. But that being said, and to me, it's just amazing that, as you both said, and Des, I appreciate you being so humble, but at the end of the day, tackling a big project like that, or what you guys are doing, can you tell me a little bit about the Open Phantom project? Some people may or may not be familiar with the Open Hornet project, but tell me about the Open Phantom project.
Okay, shall I?
Please do.
Okay. Yeah, so I have to mention the founder of this project, who is sadly not with us here today on this podcast, but who we owe this project to be honest. He was the initiator, the prime mover, and he got us together to start working on this, and then kind of moved into the shadow, sort of, when the project kicked off. But so I'm speaking of Dot, who just got folks together and thought of how to do this, the principles that would guide us. He wrote the standards, and made this thing happen in the first place. So what the project is about? It's the prime principle would be, let's make a set of guidelines how to build a home cockpit. Let's make it modular, and let's make it as accessible as possible. So if you got a 3D printer and just a solder gun and some basic skills learned off of YouTube, you should be able to make it. That's sort of our guideline. And all the parts should be more or less off the shelf. And it can be modular, or it should be modular, so that if somebody has a small apartment, can only fit like half a console and something on their desk, they should be able to pick and choose and make something out of our repository. So that's the idea. And if you contribute to the project, the license should be so that attribution, the standard MIT license, right? So commercial products are okay as long as you don't pretend it's your own design. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very cool. So how did you guys get into? I mean, so there's an Open Hornet project, which has been interesting as well because, uh, and I have a question about whether or not you can leverage any of that. But it's been fascinating where there's even somebody on Etsy who I think what they do is they essentially just sell parts for the Open Hornet project, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But how did you guys pick the Phantom? I know I've got some kind of bizarre interest in the Phantom for whatever reason, but how about you guys?
Well, for me, it was I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what it is about it that I just always loved. I think I just love the early '70s to mid '80s sort of era of aviation, and the Phantom sort of really represents the early part of that, and it was just something about it that I always loved. What about you, Des?
I would say I wanted to make an A4 cockpit, to be honest. That was my interest. And with the open nature of the mod itself, I thought, yeah, let's make an open A4 cockpit.
Mm-hmm.
However, I got a little bit dismayed by two things really. The ADI, the flight director, is at that point was well too complex for for my mind to just grasp what's going on. There's 3 axes. It's just too complex. So I tried looking at how to make that instrument, and I just failed. That's one. And second, while looking at the cockpit, there are many, like the mod is obviously the best free mod. No questions asked, right? But it's also very similar to the F4, right? It's some of the instruments are basically the same instruments, but not all things in the cockpit are applicable and functional. So that's sort of like why make a made me think why make a cockpit and invest time and money, put it in your home and then not be able to click every single thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, even looking at the controls within the F4 and what heat blurs put together, like there's an entire thing that says Sim Cockpit, right?
Yeah.
And so if there potentially could be a button for almost everything.
Exactly. Right. Everything works pretty much, and shout out to Hibler for making, and maybe to answer your question, for me at least, it's the most true to life and most complex combat sim out there. The F4. There just isn't a better, like more in-depth sim. I'm not sure because I'm not not much into the non-combat sims, but I'm not sure anything comes close in terms of like system simulation. Fluids inside of lines. Yeah. So that's why I went for the i4, and I like the plane too.
Yeah, I'll just say one thing that when I got the F4 when it came out, I normally will get an aircraft even if I don't fly it or immediately, or I don't gravitate towards it. And I think part of it was because I was lazy and didn't want to invest the time. But as some people I've talked to recently, it's like when I got my VP Force stick plus the telemetry coming through to the F4, it was it was like that turned DCS into something different for me, frankly. But
absolutely,
yes, absolutely.
And I don't think that to your point, I don't think any other aircraft gives you that experience that the F4 can give you with the right force feedback stick.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
So that kind of got me going down this road where I was like discovering. It is how I came across you guys. But part of it was interesting. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Sport, DCS Sport. So he, a year or so ago, he was telling me how he's like, I was chatting with him. He's like, oh yeah, I'm making this B8 grip, and I'm like, what? And and then I'm like, that's interesting. And I was like, I never, I'm like, you're beyond me, pal. But then, a few months later, um, after getting exposed to the F4 and getting, the Rhino and all that, all of a sudden now I'm started expanding, looking at it, and I was like, and then I think it's the SimNet
Yep.
that, and he's the guy that has made uh, that grip available, and I think he's got some other stuff as well. But
Yeah,
he's been fantastic, and I've had him on the show too. He's a great guy.
And he's been so
yeah,
helpful to us too, especially around the stick and the extension that he's built for it and the trigger modules. He's been enormously helpful to us.
yeah. He has. He also made the HCU, so that's the hand control unit for the Wizzo
Mm-hmm.
in the F4, and it's pretty much flawless.
It's really cool. It's one of my next projects, actually.
Yeah.
So are you guys? So which are you guys now, Des? I think I saw you're focusing on the back seat
First, yes,
first.
I'm focusing on the backseat first, and if time allows, because this thing takes a while, and I don't change priorities. Meanwhile, I'll try to make the whole cockpit.
No, it's awesome. I mean, some of the pictures, and we'll put some links in the notes so folks can discover it. But boy, I'll tell you, I just looking at what you've put together has been fantastic in the replica. And it was interesting though because I had asked a question like, hey, I was looking at one of the instruments that you put together, and I go, that's amazing. How do you get going with this? Is this something I could try? And you're like, probably not yet. And and I was like, yeah, that's good because I would probably get distracted or like disheartened on it. But it's amazing. So and it's really cool for a guy like me who is more of a biz guy and a strategy guy to sit there and hear you guys say, um, you know, not having a background in it. Now, Biggus, I will say this. Teaching kids is much more important than anything I ever do, and much more challenging. I imagine you have a lot of patience to go through this.
This has okay. So my project is working on at the moment the left-hand console in the front seat, and I am up to this is my 4th year consecutively iterating it. It's a it feels like a battle that will never be won. So the patience has been severely tested. But yeah, that's something you got to feel passion for.
So tell me, why did you pick the left console, or what? How is that? Is that something that you guys agreed on? It's just something you started tackling. How did that come around?
It was for me. It was the area that I most felt that I could use within the space that I've got in my office.
Hmm.
I've got an Orion throttle, a Windwing Orion throttle, a very early one, and I needed to build around that. And it started out as basically some extra buttons, and all of a sudden it gestated into I could do the AFCS panel. Oh, I think I've seen the Warthog Project's fantastic magnetic switches. I want those,
Mm-hmm.
and it's snowballed.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, now it wasn't 2021. It would have been a bit earlier. 2020, I would have started initially, hoping that a Phantom would eventually come out, and yeah, it's kind of snowballed, and all of a sudden I've got a console in a sort of odd configuration where it's sort of a test bed at the moment.
Well, yeah, and and it's many years ago. Jabbers, um, who I don't think is involved in DCS that much these days. He said to me, "This is one of those continuing evolutionary hobbies that,
Yes.
much to the dismay of the pocketbook, and as well
Mm.
as, but to your point, like right now, I've got a Verpal throttle. I have used the wing stuff in the past, not that, but right now, for example, I've got the MFDs that I'm slowly taking away from
Yes.
my setup because I just, it's nothing I use. But what's interesting to me is that even now, like for example, there's this, I think, and I'm trying to put together somewhat of a framework to think about this. But on one side of the spectrum, you've got people going to VR with generic buttons, and then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got full replica cockpit, which is directionally focused where you guys are, which I think is really cool too. Do you see a combination of that? How do you guys see this, or do you use VR with it, or is that is this just a completely different direction?
Ooh, that's a. I think that mixed reality is going to become much bigger over the next few years. And so the answer is kind of it's going to be both.
Mm-hmm.
I think. But
Yeah.
it's hard. I'd need to read the tea leaves a bit better on that one. I think.
I don't think it's an either or. I actually started off with VR, and I've not flown DCS without VR much. I've been an early adopter of VR, so when I got into DCS about 2019 or something, maybe a bit later, I already started off with VR, and that's what I stayed. But it's always been like, yeah, I need to reach out for the stuff in the cockpit, right? It doesn't feel real. It's awesome. It's the best thing that happened in computing entertainment for a while. But it's very immersive. It's fun. It's finicky and it's frustrating at times. But compared to flat screen, it's just awesome. But then I gradually just ditched the headset, and I now fly with a projector, just a single projector, flat wall, no fancy setup. And I gotta say the immersion is different. It's not the same as being able to look behind you and see the illusion of distance, of 3D, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a different kind of immersion where you can feel not just feel, but also see in good fidelity all the stuff that's in the cockpit. But like Biggus said, there's also the promise, because the product that's currently on the market, so the Quest 3 isn't quite there in terms of fidelity with mixed reality. But it's gonna. I think it's gonna replace my projector eventually.
Yeah, no, it's. I think it seems right. I think to your point, the technology is evolving, and when I look at something like Barho, that's only it's priced commercially as opposed to recreationally. I think that what they're doing seems, like the mixed reality, as Big as said. I think that's going to be pretty impressive. But I've kind of it's VR is great until you got to look through the side of your nose, right, to see where something is, and that's then the immersion stops.
Yeah.
VR is very much like force feedback or building a cockpit. It's like a sub hobby within the DCS as your hobby. And the more time you spend in this environment, and probably BMS as well, you end up with these little sort of diversions to the side that rotate around the hobby, but it's all time invested to make the immersion better.
That's a really good way to put it. That's really, yeah, and it's interesting because I think some people swear by VR, and I've had a handful of headsets, and that they're all on the shelf, and now I'm looking at my my TV flat screen. So, but yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. So, as far as like rigs at home, how do you guys have it set up? And so, I have Monster Tech stuff. Some folks have SimFab. Some folks have Next Level. How about you guys?
Yeah,
Des, you go
for me,
first.
it was it was. I think it's next level. Yeah, I think it's an Australian company actually, right? Is it
I'm not sure
next level
actually.
racing?
I don't know,
Yeah,
but we'll give it credit to be Australian. We'll
I'll
say
take it.
yeah.
that.
So I have the flight seat from them. But I will be selling it at some point and putting in a proper you know Martin backbreaker
Oh, nice.
in instead. Yeah, yeah.
So this 2 weeks ago, I went to Houston and met with Diesel Thunder and got to walk around the F-4 that they have and that they're currently working on to get back into the air.
Our Saint Patron.
Yes, yes, our patron saint. He is
Yeah.
such a giving person. He's a wonderful man. I really appreciate him.
He pulls out, he's an amazing, such a nice guy. He invited us over. We got a chance to walk around. I still have to edit the footage, but it was fantastic. And it was one of the highlights of my summer for sure, being able to, get up and close and personal and looking in the cockpit and, all of that. It was fantastic. And I really, I enjoyed it, but it was also the side of it was like, they were explaining, um, the ejection seat. And I was like, and there's some really interesting stories around that, but it was fascinating. But yeah, no, he's terrific. And all of a sudden, he pulls out the IFF, pulls out the different modules, and but he's great.
Yeah, he's one of the people that made this possible because I'm sure we'll get to that at some point of the interview. But it's to build all the stuff and to make it a close replica, you need plans and reference material. And surprisingly, it's not that easy to come by. Even though these things were manufactured in the thousands and then taken apart in many places around the world and then sold online, it's not actually easy to get plans and references and dimensions and stuff. So where we got our reference material and dimensions from, measurements primarily, is DT. So a big thanks to that awesome guy.
Yeah, we literally could not be where we're at without him.
Yeah.
No, I can't say enough good things. Diesel Thunder, also known as Jamie, which was his given name. But he's a good dude, and we'll put a link to his channel in the show notes as well. So do you guys? So let me ask you this. So right now, Biggus, you were talking about being on the left console. Des, I see you have a ton of stuff. Do you guys have a plan that you sort of segment tasks, or is it pretty much you pick up what you want?
We're still very early in the project, and there's enough things that we are sort of collaborating on putting a log together of tasks that we need to do or that we're undertaking. And that's a bit of a work in progress over the next couple of months, probably. But at the moment, there's so much to do that it's a matter of who gets there and gets started. And Des has plenty of fantastic ideas for stuff that I've done. I've got ideas for stuff that he's done. So we're collaborating and we're constantly talking about what we're up to, I think. So that's,
That's awesome. So just for an example, can you talk for a second about like how right now you're working on the left console, Des? I've seen like that you've got a left console. Is that something that you both have independently go after, or is that to your point the collaboration?
That depends because some of the panels and some of the instruments are the same or very similar between the front and back cockpits. And as I started with the back cockpit, some of the stuff is interchangeable and we can work on it together. And other stuff we work independently. But for the most part, until now, we've worked in sort of silos, working on the same standards. because it's mostly very. I think we'll talk about it in a second, but it's not really that difficult to make the panels, at least 3D printing. So it's kind of like I can probably make a panel in an evening right now. Yeah.
Can you talk about how your process of making a panel?
Yeah, sure. So all panels are okay. Most panels are come in standard size. In aviation, it's called the Zeus metric. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but there was a guy that came up with I think it's 3/8 of an inch. That's the cadence, right? That's those little rails where the panels get mounted into. So when you get this size measured, so it's 146 millimeters actually. You get a flat picture of the panel. It can be a picture reference taken from the model viewer in the game, and you start drawing in your favorite CAD. So in my case, it's Fusion 360 because it's free. Yeah. And it's not that difficult to lay it out, right? To draw text lines. For panels specifically, it, like I said, maybe takes an evening, maybe a couple to lay out a single panel. And it when you print it in 2 colors without backlighting, it pretty much prints overnight, and you have a panel ready by morning.
So, and just for those folks, did you know how to use Fusion 360 before you started it, or is that something that you picked up? And
I knew nothing about it. I just, I didn't
ever
even
how to
look
build
at
the electric
tutorials.
car, right?
No, that's where that's where I had help. But here I knew literally nothing, and I'm not a quick study actually. It's just it's just intuitive and easy. And I think it should be for most folks.
It's one of those things where the competitor FreeCAD. I've found that if I've started as a Fusion user, and my brain speaks Fusion now, and I tried adapting to FreeCAD, and I couldn't do it. So I think if you're starting out, you want to pick a package that is going to be what you learn if you don't really have the bandwidth to maintain the skill of 2 products, because they're so radically different in a lot of ways. So my advice to anybody starting out would be go with your initial impression of what package you want to go with and go from there, because it's quite difficult to swap once you've built up habits and muscle memory. At least I've found it that way.
Interesting. Yeah. And they do, to your point, Fusion 360 does. Sometimes it's hard to find it, but they do have a free version that's out there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So once you've developed the panel. So in the evening, you've developed the panel, and then you go, okay, now I got to go print it. And what tools do you have for 3D printing that you use?
So the game changer for me, at least, was one of the modern printers, let's call them, because 3D printing really became a thing in a decade or something, right? So modern is like maybe 2 or 3 years. But for me, it was Bamboo A1, which is gyro stabilized or something. I think it has some sort of vibration sensors to make it more stable. It has bed leveling, and I think that the thing that made it possible to print stuff overnight that has different colors is AMS light. So the filament swapping thing, and also the nozzle. right? The 0.2 nozzle is what made it possible. So there's a combination of things you need to add to the printer, but it's for the most part it's a thing you buy. You don't have to reassemble it, and it just works. Whereas before, I used the Ender, I used the awesome Prusa, but these things were very hands-on. You had to, like, it was a separate hobby. And it wasn't really accurate. You could see the print lines. Stuff that was made with it looked homemade,
Right.
not manufactured, right? And whereas here with the bamboo, it does look manufactured almost.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I think that yeah, I mean, I had the Prusa a few years ago, and then I ended up with the bamboo. And to your point, as opposed to being an expert in 3D printing, the bamboo kind of just lets you go and be maybe an expert in the software as you need to be, but less about less variables that you need to be aware of. So yeah, no, I totally agree. But I think, and into Biggus's comment about a sub hobby, that certainly 3D printing can take on a life of its own.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
yes,
point is, it doesn't need to be
Right.
a sub hobby anymore, right? So you don't have to be an expert. You just outsource the experting to software and ready-made hardware.
Yep. And
I wish
so,
CNC stuff was at that point now.
well, so that's a good segue. So let's talk for a second about CNC. And is that Biggus to use CNC?
I do. I've got a couple of machines, and because my project started really before, say, the Bamboo Lab printer came, their series of printers came out, I was stuck with an Ender 3 for a long time, and I ended up with a Workbee CNC machine, which was 1 meter by 1 meter, and needed to downsize, and ended up finding a very cheap 3018, which is an absolute bottom of the barrel sort of option. And mine's slightly modded, but for creating panels, it's been absolutely fantastic.
So walk me through that process of how you make panels with, you're using Fusion 360, but now how are you getting your panels made?
I'm using acrylic. I use 2 different thicknesses. I've got a 2mm for the base part, and I usually make that out of black acrylic. And then on top of that goes a 6mm white or clear acrylic, and I machine out the back of that for switch recesses and that sort of thing with the CNC. So I use Fusion to create my tool paths, and the 3D printer comes in very handy for it because I can create jigs. So that once I've painted the front of the panel and the sides of the panel, I can fix it to the machine, and then I can do my engraves. And I'm looking forward to actually having a diode laser in the next couple of months to switch from using a V-bit engraver to a laser, which will be so much easier to live with.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, because with a V-bit engraver and a machine that's not particularly precise, and a wooden spoil board underneath it, it's very hard to get a flat sort of surface to engrave on the top of the acrylic. So it's a bit like if you had the experience of having an Ender 3 10 years ago, where you would have to put the sheet of paper under the nozzle to set your Z height. Every 15 centimeters or like 2 inches, if I've got an engrave, I'll have to do that measurement of the Z height for the tool and then pull it out and then set it off. So engraving a panel can be quite an ordeal at the moment. But it's a fantastic way to get into it if you have the resources to have a little CNC with you if you're making panels.
Interesting. So it's kind of cool to hear you guys talk about, whether it's 3D printing, CNC. Seems like a different approach to solve the same problem. And now even laser tools coming in. And I know that in our house we have an X tool my wife uses for things, but I can't use that on acrylic. So or clear acrylic, I guess is.
Yes, but you can use it to engrave. So if you paint, I think the best method that I've found so far is with my 6mm clear acrylic. Give it a couple of coats of white paint, let that cure. Give it a couple of coats of matte black, let that cure, and then you can etch off the paint for your engraving. And then it backlights beautifully.
So let's kind of switching gears to talking about electronics. So tell me, DCS BIOS. Tell me about how you guys, how are you solving the problem of electronics, and what does that look like?
Lots of Panadol. Lots of ibuprofen. Lots of alcohol.
Yeah, it's pretty much plug and play and very simple. The DCS BIOS is, I would say, easy to get into, but as your cockpit grows, you run into problems or difficulties. And I thought I hit a wall, but fortunately I wasn't one. But there's a point where you need to expand your knowledge of like C++ and stuff. And I think Biggus will be the better person to talk about it in a second, which I wanted to share my experience in. I knew a little bit of Arduino. I was familiar with the IDE, and I had a couple of decade-old Arduinos lying about, and I just put basic instruments, some switches, some lights, LEDs on the Arduino, plugged it into one of the USB ports, and it just works. There's a couple of things you need to upload and install, but it's pretty much plug and play. So it's very easy to get into. And if you want to make like a single panel or two panels or even maybe one console, it's super easy. It's easier than you think.
I think we really need to acknowledge the work that the DCS BIOS devs, both on the DCS BIOS library itself and the Arduino library over the last few years. It's really thankless work.
Yeah.
And Des is right; they've done a fantastic job. It's very simple to create a panel that works. There's not a lot of coding to it. Things get, as Des sort of alluded to, it gets harder the more that you add to it because you've got issues with Arduinos communicate. The ones that we use communicate via a serial port, like a virtual serial port on our computers. And Windows can sometimes change where the ports are, like the numbering of the ports, which causes quite a few headaches for your SimPit setup. And so we have DCS BIOS has implemented a method of connecting multiple panels by a single serial port, so to minimize the need to reconfigure so many different panels at the same time. But that also has its own finicky nature to sort out. It can be it's another sub hobby itself, really. It's something that will take a little bit of time to tune. Generally speaking, I don't think many people will have too many issues with it.
Yeah.
It's for the average user, it's an enormous time saver. You don't really need to know that much code, and you feel like a bit of a god as soon as you've built your first panel and it works, and the switches work in the game. It's amazing. It's a great experience. You get your lights turning on when you turn a knob in the cockpit. It's beautiful. But it does. You do once your project gets to a certain size, there are things that we are at the stage where we are working on and trying to mitigate a bit. And we also have to accept that Arduino processors that are used in DCS BIOS now are very, very old and comparatively slow. We've got ESP32s now that run at 240 megahertz. We've got Picos that run at 150 or 133, and they cost less than a nano, which is insane. And they're just not quite supported by DCS BIOS in all the ways that we really want yet. So that's kind of my small side project at the moment. But yeah, technology moves on, and I'm starting to feel that maybe the Arduino Megas and the Nanos and the Unos are a little bit old hat.
So, so for some folks that are out there, self included, we've also heard about like there's Leo Bodner. There are other boards out there that you can get and use. Is there a benefit of one over the other?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. We had this discussion a few times, actually. How much percentage wise of the cockpit you want to make HID, which is USB and basically joystick devices, and how much of it would be DCS BIOS. Both have their advantages and disadvantages, and I think the main advantage of Leo Butner's work is for example, the BBI 64, which I use. It just works. It's plug and play. It's there's literally no coding, no nothing. You just buy it, connect it, and it works. And you map it to DCS BIOS, which is except for axes, which are like knobs where you need analog input. Every single thing just works.
And it's not limited to DCS BIOS.
Yeah.
Like DCS either. You can take it into Microsoft Flight Sim. It's universal. It's basically a joystick device.
Yeah.
Which I think is like one of the biggest selling point for a lot of like the Bodnar boards and that sort of thing. It just works with everything.
Yeah.
Except pulling information out of the pit instead of putting it back in.
So one of the popular ways to build a cockpit, and when I say popular, it's incredibly niche, to have a SimPit or to fly simulation software, right? But it's probably dozens of people who do it. It's to split your outputs into input is HID and output is DCS BIOS, because it just works with little latency then.
Okay. Oh, will you go a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah. So stuff doesn't happen in an instant. It takes time for the signals to propagate. There are several different protocols that get translated. It's UDP. It's the internal DCS BIOS protocol. So there's wait times, and so from the moment something happens in the cockpit to the moment something happens in your physical cockpit, there can be a delay, and it goes both ways. So if something is very time sensitive, for example, you want to tune, say the contrast or intensity knob on your display or on the F-4 radar, you want the input to be instantaneous, right? Because you don't want to have lag behind. So that's one of the use cases where I use the BBI 64 because it is instantaneous. DCS BIOS can have lag. It doesn't always have lag, and especially if you have just a couple panels, it doesn't have lag. But if you have, like I do, if you have 7 or 8 devices connected at the same time, it will take time to, take the inputs and put them into the game.
Got it. That makes sense.
USB HID will process literally hundreds of inputs per second versus DCS BIOS. It can only really manage, the target is 30 frames per second or 30 cycles per second. So it's USB HID is much faster. You're not commonly going to have that much lag, but it's USB HID for inputs. Taking that strain off the DCS BIOS COM ports is a great idea.
So when you look at when I look out there, there are a number of folks that are making different components that are available right now. Nothing like an ADI, but at least not yet. But when you take a look, I think somebody has there's a couple people have like Valkyrie. They've got a throttle for the F-4. Have you guys? Are those projects things that you guys are thinking about, or are you going to defer to just more the wing for those types of devices?
So from a project, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go, because you're going to say exactly the same thing I'm going to say.
From a project perspective, these things are commercial, so we cannot include it as, we can say this is an alternative. You can buy this or buy that, but the project is aimed at people who want to make stuff or maybe cannot afford to buy stuff, right? Maybe they can buy one or two things, but it's better to spend $300-400 on a printer and then build the whole thing yourself than spend $300-400 on a single screen.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yep. No, and that totally makes sense. I think the when I look out, like for example, as I peruse the 3D libraries that are out there, and I came across like the B8 grip, or I came across the throttle, which I think is great. I appreciate I can't imagine the amount of work in engineering that goes into designing or replicating these things. It's fantastic. But as you guys think about, your priorities and things like that, or actually, let me take a step back. When you think about something like the RWR, right? To me, that would be an amazing device to have. But how would you use something like Helios to export that as a screen, or how do you see that from an electronic standpoint?
That's actually being done. I mean, it's a done project. The RWR. I think like a third or maybe a bit less of the back cockpit is done, and one of the things I was able to do is the RWR, and we've had some help from Heatblur, and I know certain individuals within that team are very outspoken and active in their forums or on Discord. And they've been helpful in getting the video to export into a screen. So the way it happens is, I'm just talking about the video export, is DCS has a built-in function, and I think it comes from like way back, where you could put parts of your like the radar or the MFDs at the bottom of your screen or in the corners. So I remember like 8-10 days, you could have both of your MFDs in each corner of your screen and kind of feel like you were sitting in a cockpit, right? So I think it's the same functionality. It's just the target where you put the MFD, it's on a different screen now. So I just bought an off-the-shelf WaveShare screen, which happened to be square. You can actually get round screens now from China, but these go like directly from Chinese sellers, so your mileage may vary. But you connect it over HDMI, and it just works.
Wow.
There is a bit of Lua magic, but it's a done, it's a settled topic, and thanks to Heatblur.
That's fantastic. So when you're going down the road and you have some questions, so they've been very open and participating in helping you guys try to problem solve some of the things you're coming across?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they have. And, as I've said, they especially some individuals are like constantly online and happy to help. I have to say though, I remember the F-14, the support that the cockpit building community got was like immediate support was probably less, but in terms of getting the reference materials, they got the cockpit plans, right? They got the STLs for the game model, which was just take one measurement and you've got the whole cockpit. You can make the frame. We didn't. We got the promise. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to call you out, Cobra, but we got the promise over a year ago. So this is one thing that would help us immensely if we got the cockpit STLs. Then we would probably have the frame ready in a few weeks.
Yeah, that'd
well,
make a huge difference.
So right now, for example, if I hope he'll listen to this, and then he'll go, oh, I forgot, and then he'll go, and then you'll get an email, and here's some STL files. That'll be magic. But so right now, do you guys? So as you're doing it, are you scanning components? How are you getting it, or is that where Diesel Thunders come in and it's giving you some specifications?
It's Diesel Thunder's calipers and and some some things can be measured based on other measurements, right? Just only need the Zeus distance, which is either the size of the side console panels or some of the front panel stuff. You just know that this gauge is exactly 2 inches across, right? Or outside the diameter of this hole would be half an inch or something. So you take that and you extrapolate to the whole panel. But again, if we have the STLs, it will be so much easier.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. So much at the moment is just based on known measurements, and it's just not quite what we want. That's not to say that the 3D model is going to be perfect to life, but it would be nice to have something more solid than.
Right. Diesel Thunder provided me a video of when Granelli was visiting him and scanning the F-100 cockpit. So I have it was interesting to see that and to see the model that came out from that. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, absolutely. If you can get those pieces now, just over the summer, I've acquired a few like HSI and a few things. So if there's anything you need from, not that you need anything from me, but I'm always happy to help and try to provide anything I've got.
Oh, you might regret saying that, but thank you very much.
Yeah.
Take full advantage of it. What a lovely new offer. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I for better for worse, I've raided eBay for some F-4 parts this summer, and as I look on my shelf, my wife would be, if she knew what it was.
I'm intensely jealous that you could just get that stuff so easily. But I mean, being in Texas,
yeah,
it's not that far away.
Yeah, no, there are two places I've come across, and they've been, to your point, the one thing I was looking for was an ADI, which I thought would be really cool to have on the shelf. But I've not found it. But the HSI, which is really cool. Now, my 11-year-old sons don't really appreciate, oh, look, you can see tack on, and it's not lit up or anything, but you can see it on the side. So but yeah, I'm happy to scan or do anything I can do to help. If it, you guys let me know.
Oh, that reminds me. We've left out one person that we have to acknowledge. We have to acknowledge Bruce, who's a member of the Open Phantom Project, who has access sometimes to a UK Phantom, and he's provided us with a few scans as well. So thanks to Bruce too.
Yeah, there's been a few people that acquired parts of Phantoms and gave us access to some measurements as well as hundreds of measurements actually and photos. So I'm not sure we can. I don't remember all the names. I apologize. Yeah.
The list
Oh.
is very long. The list is very,
Yeah.
very long. But that one particular saved me on one large nasty panel, and truly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting though. I thought with over 5,000 manufactured aircraft across the globe, I thought there would be more parts, but there just aren't.
They're surprisingly scarce in Australia. Not surprisingly, we should expect it. But yeah, and just postage shipping of a panel to here would be. I would be better off buying a full industrial
buying a
laser
Phantom.
cutter. Buying a Phantom would be cheaper.
Yeah. All right. So, when we're thinking about, one of the things that you guys have done a great job is sort of articulating how you didn't necessarily have a background for this, but you use some of these tools. What would you recommend for somebody who just wants to get started in maybe not necessarily with Open Phantom quite yet, but if they were just wanted to get going on that, and then if someone does want to get going with Open Phantom or supporting the project, we can talk about that in a second as well.
I would recommend to get in touch with an active member of one of those communities, so like Open Hornet or the Open Phantom or others. There are others, right? Yeah, so people will set you up with everything you need to get started.
And if you happen to be going, well, somebody may go, oh, it's a little bit intimidating for me because those are the serious Open Phantom folks. But would you recommend just making a button box with DCS BIOS just to get started?
Yeah.
Even just making something that's going to be it's going to serve you well, like just a button box, just an oriented button box. That would be enormous for most people that are single seat only.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea. That's a great idea.
And listen, don't get intimidated. It's like I said, I had little to no background in any of that. 3D printing was black magic to me, and it's pretty much a settled problem. Everything you need to know is on the internet, and there are people who will point you at things you need to know. You don't have to bathe in money to be able to get into this project, or any button box would probably, if you have any sort of 3D printer or access to a 3D printing service, you will be able to make a button box in a couple of days, from the start, from the moment you get into it to the moment when you have a ready-made button box on your desk.
Yeah, buy an Arduino Nano or a Pro Micro even. But if you've got a 3D printer, fantastic. Buy yourself a toggle switch, and you're pretty much 3/4 of the way there.
Exactly. It all comes in in one Amazon box.
We lost
and
Des.
you just assemble it and it works.
Oh no.
Hopefully
he agreed with me and then disappeared.
he did. No, I think it's a great idea. I think the Jester, I think hopefully he'll join us back. But I think the Jester box is a great idea for folks. And so, how about soldering? Do you solder? Is that skill hard?
Well, this is a, like everything in this. It's multi-layered. It's not difficult. In fact, it's a skill that I think that is, people make it sound harder than it is. You can start with a very cheap iron and some I'll be controversial and say leaded solder is going to be easier, but it's not that much easier. I've found that because again, like Des, I came to this with very little prior electronics experience. Soldering's pretty easy to pick up. YouTube now has thousands of tutorials. There is a subreddit on soldering which is full of fantastic advice and suggestions on equipment. You can get a fantastic USB powered iron now with multiple tips for like $30 US delivered to your door, and it will serve you for a long time and not only take care of your cockpit, but whatever else you decide to pick up after you've developed these skills and want to use them somewhere else. And then you've got that. So that's sort of the opening to it, and then you start doing things like designing your own circuit boards and needing to surface mount components. So without through holes, without having a hole to poke through the board to solder on the other side, where you bake it on a hot plate, or you use a hot air gun to melt the solder and stick the parts together. This really is an incredible time to, if you're not into electronics now, then getting into it, it's a fantastic time because it's so easy to have circuit boards made super cheaply. It's DCS creating whole new sub hobbies for lots of people.
Yeah, it's interesting because it for me, I've got two 11-year-old boys, and it's fascinating to me now where they'll say something, um, where I'll say, they'll come up to me and go, "Hey, Dad, can you print me out a frog for school?" And
Yep.
I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And it boggles my mind that before I would be using, if it was me, I'd be drawing a crayon, using my crayons to draw it.
Oh yes,
But
that's
but
yes.
it's amazing that the tools and the things, and even with the Aero PLA, um, being able to build certain things, and it's enabling the kids to be makers in a whole new light, which I think is amazing.
It's funny you mentioned that. Like being a science teacher, I also do some technology stuff with them with the kids as well. And
Mm,
I took 45 of my senior kids last year and through a course in Tinkercad, which is a
mm,
great program to get started if you're going to be if you might feel intimidated by things like Fusion or FreeCAD. It's web based. It's very easy to use. It's got an Arduino simulation built into it as well. Doesn't really have DCS BIOS in it, but that doesn't really matter because to start off with, you should be going through some of the basic steps
mhm.
about how to make stuff happen. Um, and I was able to teach my 45 odd 11 and 12-year-olds how to create their own 3D models, and then we printed them, and it was a wonderful experience. And then we extended
I,
on that by teaching them how to solder and do Arduino stuff later on. It's so accessible now to people that are coming up through school. It's just fantastic. What a time to be growing up, really.
yeah, no, I think it's fantastic, and that's why I sit there and go, I want my, as I think of it as a parent, I want my kids to have a broad range of skills, and it's fascinating to me when I sit there and I think about what they're going to be able to, the way they can think about it, things they're going to be able to make, and things like that. To me, it's just a whole different mindset. So I think
And
it's
it's not
great.
going to be that long before you can print metal on a
Mm.
printer that you have in your home. So it's the future's really bright, at least for this particular hobby. I think even if the world's going to hell, you'll be able to make stuff in the vast barren wasteland
Uh,
of whatever postal. Yeah, I'll
well,
shut up.
and yeah, to your point, it was amazing. So one of the things with the B8 grip, um, and with the Rhino, um, that I was like, okay, well, maybe the Rhino would be a little bit hard on the B8 grip, so maybe I'll get a couple pieces made out of metal. And and I think, who was it? So Simnet uh, went ahead and I forgot the name of the place, but I ordered these, part of the grip in metal, and it's fantastic. And without to be to be honest, minus the tariff cost, it's fantastic. And the fact that
Oh
you can
yes.
actually get in here are the STL files. I want this in metal, and realistically, it's like for $40, I get it back. Holy smokes, that's amazing.
It's incredible, isn't it? I think like each one of my circuit boards costs me $5 Australian, and I get 5 of them for that. And although they're not the size of a panel, it's close enough that I can, if I have to use 2 or 3 PCBs for a panel to backlight it all properly, it's insanely maybe I feel almost unethically cheap sometimes.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. Because I sit there and go, the fact that you can actually, and this is so Justin and on your 12, he makes he's on Etsy here in the States, and he makes a F-4 panel, weapons panel.
Oh, I've seen that. That's
And
fantastic.
what's amazing is, to your point, he doesn't necessarily have a background in any of this, but he's gone ahead, and I actually have to do a firmware update on it. I'm his guinea pig. But I was, I took off the button and I'm like, oh, wow. So he's got he's using like regular uh, keyboard keys in there to press.
Mm.
Now, I was sitting there going, I would prefer to have something else like a Corey button. But the fact, it just shows the innovation of leveraging what you have. And it's
That's right.
amazing.
That's right. People are so creative and so good with like their ingenuity at making things work for all sorts of things in this sort of hobby. It always blows my mind.
Yeah, it's funny though, even now though, as you're talking about the left console panel, and I'm sitting there, and so one of the things, and we published a episode the other day. So one of the guys I work with at Authentic, Roger Chafian, he and I aren't part of a squadron, but what we are doing is going through Reflected's 81-2 campaign, and which has been a ton of fun because I'll take a snapshot of where I'm at, and it's almost a competition of who can get through the missions and first with 100% credit for all the different things. So, hey, here comes Des.
Oh, there
Maybe.
he is.
Hello.
Fingers crossed.
Uh,
I believe in you, Des. Come on.
come on, buddy. You
Hey,
can do
there
it.
he is.
Welcome
You there,
back.
Des?
Maybe.
I do apologize. I don't know what happened.
Oh no, all good. Just glad to have you back. We were chatting about soldering, and being able to order, upload your STL files and get them back as metal and aluminum or whatever else you happen to want to do. It's just amazing the things that you can do today compared to even 15 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I do hate soldering though. Yeah,
I think that's
I'm terrible at it.
I've made my peace with it. I've accepted that I'll never be happy with any of my soldering, but it is so cool melting metal onto other metal.
Or your fingers.
Well, yeah. I've got 10 of them. It's okay. Well, I've got
Yeah.
eight of them.
You
Some
get
extras.
10 of them for a reason, right?
That's right. Spares.
Yes, right.
It's funny. No, it's funny you say that because I think that, and one of the things Biggus mentioned was like the number of YouTube videos. And I think it's always this challenge when you watch somebody doing soldering and they've done it. It's perfect, right? They're really good at it. And then you're like, what the hell am I doing? So, but don't,
It
it's
took them a
always
long
funny
time to get where they are. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it's that old, it was it the old, some Da Vinci, or it was somebody who said, there was an artist who said, someone asked him to draw him and he came back and said, yeah, it'll be $10,000. And it took him 30 seconds. And they were like, well, he goes, it took me 30 years to get here to draw it that way. So,
that's right. That's
yeah,
right.
right. So guys, we have gone through, I think, almost everything we wanted to cover today that I've got on the list. But I think, Des, before you exited, we were talking about, hey, someone can start, they can just start with a button box, getting going. And then what is it looking like for Open Phantom? I know you guys are just starting out now. But what does it look like in terms of, it's a continuous evolution? But what's next for Open Phantom Project?
We want to really get the GitHub repo started, where you can upload your stuff and not have it scattered over a Discord channel or a dozen. And get some instructions written as well for people just starting out who will not be able to make heads or tails of the EDSCLs themselves, because with some of the projects that are out there, you get the STLs and there are no instructions, no bill of materials. And yeah, it's good that they're out there. It's awesome, but then nothing fits together. What now? A lot of people will just get stuck on that point and maybe give up. So we don't want that sort of additional hurdle to be thrown under people's feet.
I think the best example of what I would like to see for us would be what Open Hornet has become and what Authenticate is. Those are probably the greatest open role models of cockpit design and SimFit design and self-making that you can possibly find today. So I guess that's where I sort of see us trying to get to.
Yeah.
Can you talk for a second about Authenticate? Because we haven't mentioned it here, but it is quite impressive.
Oh, Authenticate is it's a fantastic open 3D printable cockpit or SimFit project, mostly focused on World War II fighters and bombers. It's got an enormously active Discord community. I'm only a lurker. I'm not really an expert on it. I have seen some incredible videos. I think somebody there is working on a motion rig, like a motion platform for their environment. I thoroughly recommend anybody that's interested to go and have a look, because they're really ingeniously designed components. They're easy to print. I believe they have a no soldering ethos. They do things by friction fit, by I'm kind of in awe. That's just incredible stuff.
The one thing that I saw that I really appreciated was the perspective of, if you want to print it yourself, here are the files, and then they also facilitate, if you can't print it, here's where you can have it printed.
Yeah.
So in trying to bring these replica throttles or sticks and components, I think their website's pretty impressive as well. So I've absolutely been impressed by their approach.
Yeah, that's something that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, please, Des, please.
I think we at some point when the instructions are clearer than now, when we get a proper GitHub repo and you can actually fetch those files on one place, we want to get it to a point where we have a list of people who we can ask to make these things. Because people are selling in Etsy and there's ways to contact them, but for it to be really accessible, not everyone has the time to invest to build their own cockpit, but some people have the money, so we can certainly look into providing these files to makers who want to connect with buyers, right? So,
Yep.
if somebody wants to start making these panels, once we're at a point where these can be, made into a product, then certainly go at it.
Yeah, I mean, we had mentioned I think you were off that I have the F-4 panel from the on your 12 Etsy guy Justin, and it's fantastic, and it's been very innovative in terms of him using keyboard keys. So it's just interesting, and he's programmed it. He's got no background in it, but I think to your point, people are you may or may not want to be able to print it yourself. You may not have the means to print it yourself, and then some people would rather just throw money at it. So
Yeah.
I think that I think it's a neat for someone like me. I think it's fun to learn how to do something. So I think that's great, and I'm enjoying that. But to your point, if time is with time, and I've got two kids, that's not always available. So
Yeah, it's for a lot of makers, people who want to share designs. It's the measure of success is how many people enjoy what you made.
Yeah.
It's I think it's the same with artists and so on. So I want to see as many people enjoy the panels as they can. Yeah.
That's right.
Well, and I'll say this: I mean, what you guys are putting out and printing and showing is so motivating for me. So even though I have not done any of it, just going to the Open Hornet Discord channel and watching the pictures that you post of the stuff you've done is amazing. So thank you for that, because I think that to me keeps me going, keeps me interested, and certainly as I've been smitten with the Phantom of late, and I don't see myself stopping that. Well, I don't know, how if I'll end up with a full cockpit. It's certainly motivating for me to learn how to do this stuff based on the stuff you guys are posting. It makes it much more within reach.
Yeah, nice to hear.
Yeah, that's really cool to you. Thank you. Yeah, that actually, it's such a nice thing to have somebody say that. So thank you very much. That's
No,
Yeah,
thank you.
On a similar self-congratulatory note, I think the best piece of validation I got was from a real world pilot, who said, "Is that a real, speedometer you got? Did you get this off eBay?" And I was like, "No, I made it." So
Right.
that's what I knew I made it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I will say the speedometer, that what you made, and it looks, brand new. It looks amazing. And that to me is, so it's very aspirational for me, but it also makes it within, like, okay, I can, it's going to take a little bit of time to get from here to there, and that's okay. But it makes it, okay, soldering. I will never be an expert on that, but I will get the good enough. And but that's a good measure of success, is just looking at what you guys are putting out there, as opposed to giving up or not being able to see it. You kind of put the milestones and the markers out there for us, and I think that's great.
yeah.
All right, gents, what else do we need to cover today? I think we've covered everything on my list. Is there anything that we've missed that you'd like to communicate to the community or out there?
I think there's one thing I wanted to do, if I may.
Of course.
Since I have the soapbox. Yeah, so there are things that were the components that are available out there, right? So off-the-shelf stuff like switches, magnetically held switches, screens, you can get it pretty much all of it is available from one or other seller. The one thing you cannot get, and it's just not I don't, to my knowledge, nobody made a component like this yet, either for the Simpit community or as a commercial product. That's the numerical counter, like a mechanical counter, like one you would get in your gas meter or something, right? And the Phantom is full of those. So, making something like this work on a single nano at the scale that we need it to be, that would be something. So I wanted to put out a challenge to any makers out there. Be the first one to do it.
Oh, please. Yes, please. That thing gives me
That's
headaches.
awesome.
That keeps me awake at night.
Yeah. It seems
awesome.
it seems within reach, but just not ours, at least for now.
And within the space constraints that we have within the
Yeah.
consoles and the
Like,
tables.
you can make it work if you use, like, I don't know, for a 4-digit display, you use 4 different servos or motors. But using just like one motor or 2 and some sensors, it's like if somebody makes that work at the scale, I'll crown them as a genius.
Yep. Yeah.
So if they want to accept this challenge, the best place for them to find it would be on the Open Phantom Discord.
Yeah.
Is that a good place to connect to do that? And then what do you guys need to set up the GitHub repository at this point? Is that coming soon, or is that
It's coming. It's just the subject of some ongoing deliberation at the moment. It's coming. It's not far.
And the reason why I ask is because your challenge, you could put it out there in a document, right? You could put challenges into that might be a good place for people to engage with it, right? So not just on Discord, but that. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
It's a great idea.
So in that way, as you think about requirements, right, you could put them out there and input the challenge. So any other soapbox discussion points? Well, if not, we will thank you again for your time today. Thank you for all of your work. And what I'd like to do is have you guys back at some point in the near future where we can talk about where you're at with the project and any milestones and things like that, if that makes sense for you guys.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Thank you very much for having us. Yeah, looking forward to our eventual next catch up. It'll be great.
Yeah, same.
Awesome.
Looking forward to it.
Indeed.